Learn to be super successful. Subscribe to my channel, Meathead.
And even though you're as young as you are, you're beyond redemption. It's like the bullet. 1 out of 3. And I told you that child psychiatrist, a world-renowned guy, D'Antonio, said if you have 1 good kid out of 3, you go to the Hall of Fame of Parenthood. We got 1 3/4. We got 1 3/4. And I am no candidate for the Hall of Fame for Parenthood. I can attest to you. My daughter was sitting here, who's a little me with a skirt, about that tall. She says, I've said this before, at my 70th birthday, which we had 200 black tie of my purported better students come. It's a 3-day event. And after about the 4th or 5th or 6th time, they came up to Kelly, and they said, "Is your daddy really like this?" So then she took the mic in the end of the 2nd day and said, "Daddy is, believe me, my daddy's like this. And he treats everybody the same, like shit." And he says, "But we don't know why people put up with it, but it works." That was her answer. Because they may be treating you like shit, but it's the fucking truth. And as my grandmother, God rest her soul, said, if the truth doesn't hurt, it's not the truth. It's not the truth. Well, that was almost 8 years ago, and it's worse now. Nobody listened to me that all the markets were going to go down. Number 4 is a motherfucker. I can't hardly wait. You know when you flush a toilet and the turds are going around like that, and then the last turd finally goes down? You're not going to be the last turd to go down the toilet. You're going to be one of the first turds to go down the toilet. Because you're not prepared. I've been saying, and now I'm saying, I told you so. I didn't used to say that, but now I am. I was so right about Scottish politics, I ought to be king of Scotland. It's run by idiots, morons, and thieves. And I've been saying it for at least 10 years. Dundee is still the drug capital of Europe. It's never going to change. Never. I met with the president of the Chamber of Commerce here, and I met with the chairman of the Chamber of Commerce here at Dundee. And I met with the Lord Lieutenant of Angus, which is the the King's representative. Got the universal answer when they look down. And I still haven't thrown my hat into the political ring. But I told you, but you don't want to hear. Now, for those of you, nobody in this room's old enough to know this. In February 1942, a great air battle was over Los Angeles. You can don't Google fuck it now. Over Los Angeles. 1,700 plus anti-aircraft shells and guns were fired at somebody over Los Angeles. Not dissimilar to Roswell. At first they said it was an alien invasion. That was the headline today. The next 3 days it was a balloon, just like Roswell. A great air battle was fought over Los Angeles. Now, if Los Angeles had fallen in, otherwise I was born in Florida. So, it should have been falling off into the ocean where it belongs. Because there and parts of Florida, their brains are baked by the sun too much and they're all flakes. There were people that are dead now that talked about this. My dad was one of the ones that, saw this happen. Because you can't take the truth.
I think I'm entitled. You want the truth. You can't handle the truth. Son, we live in a world that has walls, and those walls have to be guarded by men with guns. Who's going to do it? You, Lieutenant Weinberg.
It hasn't changed a fucking bit. You can't take the truth. And I got nothing to sell you. I don't give a fuck. And if you leave today, which I hope all of you leave, then I don't have much to do. I have nothing to do. I'll go back to sleep. Maybe I'll flip 1.5 of you to the dark side. I used to be called the Darth Vader of financial information. Maybe. We normally have 1.5 superstars per class. And the superstars don't show themselves right away. Some take years. Thomas, a superstar from Canada, says, look in the front of you, he's going to fail. Look to the right of you, he's going to fail. Look to the left of you, she's going to fail. Look behind you, he's going to fail. Failure by, making generational wealth. Not overnight, but almost overnight. There's not anybody that's gone through the seminar, with 2 or 3 exceptions in this room, that is not richer because they came to the seminar. But man's greatest burden is unfulfilled potential. Man's greatest burden. Now, you don't read about this. What are the real reasons Walmart, Starbucks, and all these big retail institutions are closing up? Nobody even talks about it. Because that model is motherfucking dead. One of the first things to go is retail. How can a company that employs over 1 million people, Walmart, go in the shit pan? How? Very easily. I've been saying for years and years and years, one day, Zuckerfucker's going to wake up. I already know Jeff Bezos, the canny Cuban, is already woken up, and they're going to tighten their belts. At Amazon, if you want popcorn, you bring the popcorn to the office. If you want cereal, you bring cereal to the office. At Apple, 3 people share a Mac. Am I saying that? Mac, is that a computer? Yeah, a Mac. But you don't read about that, do you? And I've been saying it for actually decades now. And some of the people say, my naysayers, well, even a broken clock is broken. A broken clock is right twice a day, Peña. That's what they say. But I've been so right, it's beyond being right twice a day. I call negative oil the only person in the world, in the universe, I think in the galaxy, that knew we were going to have negative oil. And we did, minus $37 a barrel. How did I know that? Other than I'm a smart cocksucker. The pundits are right about this shit. I've never been to Cushing, Oklahoma to see where they collect the shit. I've never dealt with OPEC countries like I have, which always lie. They can't tell the fucking truth. 60% of the OPEC countries cheat. Meaning they produce more oil than they're telling people. You haven't done that. Nobody has. Not dissimilar to the North and South Pole, which Sally and I have both been to. There's been 11 expeditions to the North and South Pole. 11. Since 1911. The only expeditions alive is my wife and myself. The other 10 are motherfucking dead. And yet we have people on ABC, BBC, flapping their fucking lips about global warming. When I mentioned it at the South Pole, they laughed at me. Mr. Peña, 55,000 years ago, it was 2.3 degrees Celsius warmer than it is now. Yet you listen and read, and there's a cocksucker in this room that's going to listen to a podcast today during the break, which isn't me. I can almost tell you who it's going to be. Because you're idiots. Now, some of you are going to pray for the Virgin Mary, like they did in 1918. And they come by the thousands every year to Portugal for her reappearance. And she doesn't come. And those 3 little kids that saw her, 2 of which died soon, and 1 lived to be almost 100 or 100. And she told the Pope in a letter that she gave to not this Pope, not this 3 popes ago, what was going to happen and how the world was going to end. Smartly, the Catholic Church has never revealed the contents of that motherfucking letter. If prayer worked, 2/3 of the world pray the most, how's their program fucking worked out? It hasn't, has it? They're fucked. I know what was in that motherfucking letter. When the Pope, not this Pope, but when the Nazi Pope, before him, went online on Twitter, I tweeted him. The next day he resigned. The first Pope in 600 motherfucking years to resign. I know it was in that cocksucker. And even though I poke fun at it, nobody's tighter to the Catholic Church than me. The Pope and the Catholic Church has their foot so far up my ass, you should see the red part of slippers coming out my lips. Most of our money goes to the Catholic Church. And you didn't have to come here. All this is on my website. These are the only things I do different. I only want to know about the how, not the why. I know that I don't want to be liked. I want to be effective. I know that sticks and stones will break your bones, but words should never hurt you, which is just the opposite now. People commit suicide because they're bad-mouthed on Facebook, etc. I can tell you right now, if I had a daughter or a son that killed himself because of some shit that he got over Facebook, I would go to wherever that person's family from, and I would eliminate the DNA for all. I would kill everybody in the family. Cats, dogs, grandparents, grandchildren, cousins. I would erase the DNA from Earth. And lastly, but not leastly, I know that fear is false expectations appearing real. And you believe in fear. That's why you're here. If you weren't afraid that you're going to wind up with nothing, you wouldn't fucking be here. (1992, 2022. I wish this wasn't true. Calvin Klein's poster child. What the fuck happened? God help us. How is this even possible? Now they got commercials of fat broads up there for fat, they don't call it fat, what do they call it? Bigger size, whatever. Who wants to see a big fat tub of shit that's got tits like a watermelon and it's got an ass like a Volkswagen? Who gives a shit? And now in this country, I don't know if it's other than Scotland, they've got two great new commercials. One is a girl sitting on the toilet like this, and girls always sit with her legs together. I don't know anyway, like this. And she's Irish, she's a really pretty girl, and she said that they don't call it a period now. What do they call it? Anyway, when you're having your periods, should you be burdened with what she's trying to say is a soaky tampon, I think, or a soaky Kotex. And part of the commercial is she's taking a shower and chunks of blood are falling between her legs on the fucking shower floor. Are you kidding? I don't give a fuck if the women, some of the old hags that come here haven't had a period. They wish they had a period again. They're past it. Why? That's definitely too much information. But look at this. Fuck. In every commercial now, you see, it's a mixed couple, mixed race. I've asked, we don't have too many, we got maybe a half-assed black in the room or 20% black. There are not that many mixed couples on the planet that you see in the commercials now. Because we're trying to be PC and we're trying to be woke. Recent study came out, and I've known this. Overconfidence dictates who gets top jobs, period. If you talk shit, you're going to get the job. They're may fire you later, but you're going to get the job, whereas a mealy-mouthed woman won't get the job. And that's just the way it is. It's been that way since caveman. It's not going to fucking change. Although women have this program easier. I don't think that's fair. Women able to do deals easier than guys. Now, I'm not saying they're not fucking their way to the top, but if I was a woman, I'd have calluses on my back. And nobody, the people that are repeats, you're most vulnerable when you stick your head and your legs out when you're a tortoise, right? None of you left here with your legs and head in, and you come back with your legs and head in. Because you wouldn't take the risk. The UK now ranks as one of the most socially liberal, cunt-like countries in Europe now. This little island used to rule 2/3 of the planet with something called gunboat diplomacy. If we saw it, we wanted it, we just leveled the country with gunboat diplomacy when we pulled into their harbors. Now we got Richie the Sunak, and in this country, our first minister is some Pakistani kid. And now we're afraid, if we had shit in our mouth, we wouldn't say it now. They have not outlawed bad cursing at Westminster. So until the Sergeant of Arms put me in chains, I'm going to be saying, fuck, shit, cunt, when I get elected. Ms. Dundee, it's embarrassing to be a Scot now. Everybody knows you're all fucking thieves. They laugh at us at being Scottish around the world. They laugh. I don't blame them. I've been laughing for 40 years that I've been here. And they resorted to cold calls. The Scottish government resorted to cold calls to fill the slots for a new accounting firm that ran like thieves in the night. So they're taking over the QLA model now. You're only, and now it's not 2,000 cold calls, you're about 1,500 cold calls away from being a millionaire. The people that have come back for the second time, you did 5,000, 6,000 calls, Raymond? Okay. Somebody asked me in London, because I see kids when I'm in London, why do I give all the product away free? And I told this black kid, like I tell everybody, because I want to take the last excuse you have for not being successful. Because we went from the most expensive product on the internet to zero. About 15, 18 years ago. Because that's the excuse people used to use, that my shit was too expensive. The rates aren't any different now that I give it away free. Because it takes change. And now, I got a mentee on Shark Tank. Black beauty. Good looking bitch that she is. I've taken a lot of shit from the black community, and she says, Dan can call me anything he wants, because he's my nigga. Fine looking bitch. And there she is, with Rufus, Doofus, the three stooges. How is this possible? She got her own TV show. She's rocking and rolling, crushing it. And then we got you, repeaters. And then I couldn't finish this morning before I turned it over to Raymond without the fucking Dalai Lama, who I don't know, but a number of my mentees are tight with the Dalai. Now, whether he's sucking their tongue too, I don't know. But I learned from the Onassis people, where there's smoke, there's fire. And now they've come up with a backup story that it's part of the fucking ways of the people from Nepal, which I've been to Nepal. I celebrated my 73rd birthday in Nepal. And I must admit, for about 2.5 weeks after I left Kathmandu, and we went to the base camp at Everest at 18,000 feet, Sally says I was different. I felt different. Now, part of that might have been oxygen deprivation I had up there, but I felt different. It wasn't that I was nicer. It wasn't that I was kinder, but I was nicer and kinder. But it wore off. Thank God. So now I'm back to my regular self. But I'm not sucking tongues. That's repulsive on every level. When I come back, I'm going to come back as a cult leader, like the Dolly. No taxes. Now, you guys, and these are the kind of gifts I get. These are the keys to a wealthy, good-looking woman from Mexico City. She recently changed her locks, and she sent me a new set of keys. I have other mentees that send me shit like this. If you have the gun and the grenade, you don't need the handcuffs because they're dead. But I know what the handcuffs are for, supposedly. I got an email today from a lady from September 22. September or June, I forget anyway. And I'm not promoting this. I guess they think that my sperm will make them make a baby, but I mean, make them something. I don't know what the fuck they are. I already told you about the guys who are having, their wives are having kids. 49-year-old to have a kid again and having somebody suck on your tits at 50? That sounds ugly to me. We have a number of wives that hate me because they're having kids way past when they should be having them. Now, you're Dutch. Would you read that?
In English or
Dutch.
Wat is de betekenis van een existentiële crisis? Een existentiële crisis doet zich voor wanneer je je afvraagt wat de reden van je bestaan en de zin van het leven is. Deze vragen zijn moeilijk te beantwoorden en kunnen je het gevoel geven dat je vastloopt.
I had that specially made for the Dutch morons. Well, you can tell them what it means in English. Go ahead.
What's the meaning of an existential crisis? An existential crisis will happen when you question the reason or the purpose of living and the purpose of life. These questions are pretty difficult to answer, and you can get the feeling that you're stuck.
Or when you come back to the QLA seminar. Most of my Hall of Shame are Dutch. For real. I have a feeling we're going to be adding Cubans, but I mean, most of those guys are Dutch. The biggest thief up there is Australian. Stole $241 million cash money. It's in the DNA for a Dutchman. They can't help themselves. It's like the nymphomaniacs. Got to fuck 5 or 6 people a day. They can't help themselves. This was a guy that came to the seminar about the time that some of you repeaters, and he wrote me, lastly, just so you're aware, and by no means am I making any excuses, I've been working an insane amount of hours outside of this company as I'm buying out my partner due to his substance abuse issues, and now I'm divorcing my wife. I will push through this and this as it's a small bump in the road and a new path for me. I'm just giving you some, anyway. He's a guy that I happen to be chairman of, that he slowed down the last few months. And it's because his substance abuse partner stole, I don't know, $2-3 million out of the bank. And his wife is suing him for, I don't know, 15, 20 million. And now people tend to lose their focus when that happens. And it's going to happen to you. Remember I said, at the time you came to the seminar, we had about a 60% divorce rate, and we had about a 60% dissolution of partnership rate in business. It's closer to 70 now. Those are just the facts. Because you still are rot with baggage. No matter what you do, no matter how many seminars you go to, no matter how much therapy you get. I use the story, it's not a story. We had a black gal here, a doctor, about 10, 12 years ago, who was from Ghana. And her mother had sold her to Idi Amin, the great terrorist, rapist, shithead. And Idi Amin got her when she was 7 or 8 years old, and then sold her back to her mother when she was 11 or 12 because her ass orifice and her vagina was too stretched out too much. And it wasn't a tight enough fuck. Sold her back to her mother. Then her mother sold her again to some other asshole, you know. And she escaped, and she went to immigrant, illegal, like you see now. And she ultimately got to medical school and became a psychiatrist. An attractive woman. And she went in to help people that were abused, and you know, because she had been abused. And we had a young guy, an Israeli guy, who had said, made light of the fact that too many people complain about being abused. And she said, you can go to therapy 50 years, like Barbara Streisand has, and Woody Allen has 50 years of therapy. And I still can't forget his 10-inch big black dick up my ass. When I take a shower, when I go to the bathroom, or I try to have sex, all the therapy on the planet is not going to ever fix me. Some of you in this room are not fixable without the big black dick up your ass. And we all know who to thank for that, don't we? When I see accomplishments by your parents and grandparents, nothing. And then I see I had a loving and nourishing childhood. That's sick. We had 3 people get the perfect score in super success, and we had 1 person get a perfect score on the success test, -3. Somebody in this room certifiably should be in, not an insane asylum, they don't call it that now, in a special needs place. One of you, based on your scoring. 2, 3 of you are borderline. But that's like you're either pregnant or you're not pregnant, right? The perfect score is -3 with super success. Well, we don't have any -3 as a default on the super success test. So that means when they ask you, if somebody spit in your wife's face, what would you do? You got 4 choices. The most used answer by people is that I would try to ascertain if he had a bad day or where he was in his life. What does that have to do with anything that he spit in your wife's face? Because you're cunts. Where I came up, you beat the guy to death or try to spread his brains like mayonnaise on a fucking piece of bread with a brick. The only guy that understood it was the Cuban double murderer that came through the seminar a number of years ago. He answered the question straight away. And then he said he would eliminate the DNA of his family down to the cats and dogs and goldfish. Not everybody deserves to be alive. And certainly not everybody deserves to be born. So this is what I'm working with. And yet we still flip you. We still flip you to the dark side. For 10 years, I eliminated virtually everything out of my life, including my kids, my family. I've said before, Sally and I went 7 and 8 years, respectively, without talking to our mothers. Not talking to them, because our mothers were toxic. And big sacrifices. And depending on how much or how little you're willing to be comfortable being uncomfortable will dictate how successful you are with this program. But there's no bullshit. There's no bullshit. Is it 10 o'clock? Okay. And on that happy note, I'm going to thank Raymond for being here. He already gave you some sage words of last night, some of which you got, some of which they didn't get. and you may or may not get the feedback vis-a-vis the question period you're going to have later after your talk. But he's in the trenches.